Suffolk Pod Show was produced and managed by podtalk.co.uk.
Episode 4, talking to Natalie Roberts, co-owner of the beautiful Windmill, Suffolk. Natalie, originally from London, is here to tell her incredible story of how she and her husband Steve fell in love with Suffolk from just one visit back in 2007, and how they threw all of their time and passion into renovating an historic derelict windmill, transforming it into an award-winning, state-of-the-art, exclusive boutique accommodation. Here to tell us more about their remarkable experiences and what to expect from your stay at the Windmill, Suffolk is Natalie Roberts. Hello, Natalie. How are you?
Hello, Susanna. I'm well. And yourself?
Yep, I'm very well. I'm so looking forward to talking to you about the Windmill. I'm just so intrigued about not just its history, but what it is like to actually stay there. It looks fabulous. Before we talk about that, though, we really just want to talk to you about you and Steve first, how this adventure started.
Thank you. Really, firstly, really nice to be included, and thank you for thinking us, and thank you so much for the lovely introduction as well. It's actually making me want to stay at the Windmill, and I own it. So we ended up in Suffolk a bit randomly, really. Steve and I came up to the Christmas market, which we'd heard, it's almost like folklore, that the Bury St Edmunds Christmas market is one of the most amazing markets to go to. And my mum had friends up here, and so she used to visit quite regularly, and she said, you've got to go, you've got to stay over and just experience it for a couple of days. So we did that, and at that particular time we had decided that we wanted to move out of London, and originally we were looking sort of Hertfordshire area, so just outside, so that we could continue to commute and still work in London. However, we came to Bury St Edmunds and really liked it and decided, maybe we should look a little bit further. And on the day after the Christmas market, we'd stayed in a hotel in Bury, and we picked up the newspaper, and I saw this particular property, Mill Farm, where we live now, and it had a windmill in the garden. And I said to Steve, can we go and look at that one? He said, no, it's just too far out. It's going to be too remote for us. We're not going to be able to get back to London. And so I kind of put it on the shelf and didn't really think about it again. And I suppose it was about a month later, my mum phoned me and she said, I'm in Bury St Edmunds. I'm in the estate agent. And I've seen a property that I think might be right for us, because we were moving out of London with mum, having a granny aunt in the same property. And she said, it's got a windmill in the garden. And I said, is it in Cockfield? And she went, how on earth do you know that? You've only been to Bury St Edmunds once. And I said, I saw it in the newspaper back in November. And she said, I think this is the one. Should I go and look at it while I'm here? And so she went out to come and have a look, and she phoned us from the property, and she said, I think this could be the one. You need to come and have a look at it. But unfortunately, the sellers of the property, their sale had fallen through back in the November, and it had gone back on the market. And we'd made an offer on another property, and that had fallen through for a different reason. And so we came to look at it, and we left the property, but nobody talked. We drove all the way back. I think we were about Saffron Walden area, so we'd driven for about 45 minutes to an hour, and none of us were talking about it. And I think one of us must have said, what do you think? And we all started talking, and we went, this is the one. And we stopped the car. We drove all the way back to Bury St Edmunds. We put in an offer, and we basically moved in within 8 weeks. It was crazy. It was like something that went from nothing to everything, and we had this lovely old windmill stood in the back of the garden, which unfortunately it had stood empty for near enough, it was coming up for 100 years.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking it was the last proper windmill built in Suffolk?
We've been told that it was the last windmill to be built in Suffolk in 1891, which is fantastic for us, because it's a lovely piece of history to have had the opportunity to bring back to life, albeit obviously in a different guise. But when we bought it, the position that we were in is that it didn't have any sails, it didn't have any inner workings, there was no top to it, and it looked like what we used to call like the upside down plant pot, because that's what it looked like to us.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it did. And so we looked into what we could do with it that was going to, in turn, hopefully be commercial from the point of view of the amount of money that we had to spend on it to bring it back to life again. It needed to be something that in the long term would bring some return back. And so we started thinking, maybe bed and breakfast. But then we thought, we can't really sort of walk back and forth with the tray every morning bringing breakfast over to people. And that's where we came up with holiday accommodation. And then that's how the conversation started. And that went on for, I think it was probably about 6 years that we'd been here before we got to the point where we were able to start thinking about, could we realistically do something?
Yeah. I mean, were you commuting to London at the time?
Yeah, initially we both were. So I went into a recruitment agency when I came up and was very luckily offered a position with Compass Point Recruitment and worked with them for a few years up in Bury. So I started, I think it was within about 4 months of leaving London, and Steve continued to commute for over 2 years. So he had that long old drive of an hour and a half to 2 hours in each direction each day for a good couple of years.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, we both lost a relative within a short period of time of each other. And it was at that point that we said, right, this is it. Let's take inheritance. Let's look at remortgaging. Let's look at borrowing money off of everybody that we know. And what can we do with the Windmill? And that's where Steve, at the time, he quit his job and he basically spent 2 years with 2 fab local builders, Ron and Simon, and the 3 of them spent 2 years renovating the Windmill from the derelict shell to what you see today.
Yeah.
And very luckily for us, it made me laugh actually. Steve used to say, it'd probably take us about 6 months. I really have no idea where he got the 6 months from, but I think that the 2 years came about because it's a round building. I think none of us had any idea of how difficult it was going to be to actually make everything, because everything had to be made bespoke from scratch to fit into obviously the round walls. It's not a normal build, but Steve at the time was like, I never want to see another round building again. And now that it's complete, now it's done, he's like, right, what other windmills are around there that I can renovate?
And you're like,
he's gone for one. Please just have a rest, just for a few weeks. But it's an ongoing project, and which is great for us because it keeps us busy. But it's like through lockdown earlier this year, obviously we were closed for coming up 4 months. So Steve took the opportunity to build a whole new garden area out the back of the Windmill for our guests. So every year, because we get repeat guests who come back year after year, we really like to try and make a change for things so that every time they come back, there's something different to feel. There's new bits of furniture or new interior decoration. So it's really nice for us to be able to sort of keep on top of it and sort of keep our eyes peeled as to what's new in sort of hospitality and see what we can do to bring that into the Windmill as well.
Well, you're very good at that indeed. I just want to go back to once the Windmill was completed, it attracted quite a lot of attention. And I think you won some awards, or certainly were nominated for some quite serious awards around the area. Yes,
we've been so fortunate on that front. And the first award that we won was actually the National Roofing Awards. And that came about because the dome that you see on top of the Windmill has been made from a material called zinc. And that particular elliptical shape had never been made, a roof or any kind of structure had never been made in that shape before. Wow. So that was our very first award. And of course, we were just excited beyond belief to actually even be nominated for an award. And then we've been so lucky that since then we've had awards for different types of things. So we've had awards for the building side of things. And so we won an award from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. And then we were nominated and finalists for the Royal Institute of British Architects. So that was on the building side. And then since then we've been lucky enough to be finalists for the last 3 years for the East Anglian Daily Times and Eastern Daily Press, Norfolk and Suffolk Tourism Awards. So we got to the finals for Best Self-Catering and Customers at the Heart of Everything for the last 3 years. So we're just ecstatic. So for 2 people who had gone from working in London with no experience working in hospitality or building or restoring a windmill, for us it's just, we're just over the moon. In my office I've got all of the posters up of all of the awards and the nominations that we've had, and it's a little bit, it doesn't feel real sometimes. And when you talk to people and they say, what do you do for a living? And we say, well, we own a windmill that we've converted into luxury holiday accommodation. Coming up 4 years down the line, it still feels a little bit like a dream, really. It sounds daft to say, but it does feel that way.
I can't imagine what it must feel like, because that was such a change for you, and you've done it so beautifully, to the point that you've had Mr. George Clark come to you, and you were on his programme. Well, how did that come around?
Well, they approached us from seeing the windmill, so we've actually been quite astounded at how many people seem to know about the windmill, not just within the local area, but we seem to have even reached overseas. We sort of get inquiries from. We actually had a funny story, actually. We had an email from a gentleman in Australia who asked us if we would send one of the Windmill Suffolk dressing gowns that we provide for the guests that stay in the Windmill, and then we also sell them if people would like to take them home as a memory of their stay. And he'd seen that we did that, and he dropped us a line and said, would you be able to send one out to me for my father's 90th birthday? Because he used to live at Mill Farm. He grew up knowing the windmill in his garden. So we sent him one of these dressing gowns out for his birthday, and we got a photo back of this gentleman on his 90th birthday in the dressing gown with his thumbs up in our Windmill Suffolk dressing gown. So it's like, that's the furthest it's reached. And we had a couple the other week email us from Alaska asking us to send their dressing gowns out. But no, I know, it's unreal. So while we're thinking, yes, we've got all of we have people from Cockfield, people who actually live in the village who've come to stay for special occasions. So we've had 3 or 4 sets of people who actually live within a 5-minute drive. So we've got our nearby people, and then we've got people as far afield as Alaska and Australia. It's unbelievable for us, really.
Such good news, and you're still busy now, even in the current times, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute.
You're listening to Susanna Hornby talking to Natalie Roberts from the Windmill, Suffolk.
Let's talk about Cockfield. You just mentioned it there, and how close it is to Lavenham and to Bury St Edmunds. When people are visiting Suffolk, and particularly that area, obviously they come and stay at the Windmill, no doubt. But what else can people experience in the local area? We
are so fortunate that the Windmill is in the location that it is, because you've got the option to kind of escape everything in that we're surrounded by a rural area and there's all open fields, so you can just go for. During lockdown, we were going out for walks every day, and we literally weren't seeing anybody. So you walk for sort of like 2 hours and not bump into anyone. But we've also got everything on our doorstep. So we've got some amazing local restaurants, and you can go to, for example, a 5-minute drive from us is Tudor Lavenham. So you've got all of the beautiful old Tudor properties to wander around, and then you can have a great cream tea. Like one of our favourites in Lavenham is a place called Lavenham Blue, and then there's also everything from your fine dining, like the Great House in Lavenham, and also Maison Bleu at Sister Restaurant, which is an award-winning restaurant in Bury St Edmunds, which is only a 10-minute drive from us. And you've got all of the lovely little villages around us. So you've got Long Melford, Clare, Cavendish. Long Melford has got Scutcher's Restaurant, which is an institution in the area. So you've got fab dining options. And then you've got great things like if you want the heritage side of things, there's lots of National Trust and English heritage properties that are really nearby. We're within a 45-minute drive to the coast, so you can get up to Aldborough, Southwold, Felixstowe. You've got Newmarket with the horse racing, which is only 25 minutes from us. You've got within 45 minutes Cambridge with all of the punting and obviously all the universities to visit. I think people don't really realise in Suffolk how much there is to be able to get to. The Bury St Edmunds in itself, the tour guides in Bury St Edmunds do a fantastic walk. At the moment it's running every day at 2:00, and you can go into Bury, and we've actually done that walk with lots on our own, but also with lots of friends and family that come up, because there's about 5 or 6 different walks that you can do. So we've done the scary murder mystery one at night time. But we've learned so much about Bury that we'd lived in Bury for 5 or 6 years before we realised actually the size of how big the cathedral area was in the past before the Reformation. So with the area, I think what we have found originally when we first opened, a lot of people were booking just to stay the minimum break at the Windmill, which is a 2-night break. And everybody, without fail, anybody who comes back always stays for an extra night. So if they stayed for 2, they come for 3. If they stay for 3, they come for 4. Because they realise that when they get here, how much there is to do. And I think just unfortunately, because we're a little bit out, on the corner of the country, a lot of people don't venture out sometimes as far as Suffolk, and they don't realise how much great stuff there is to do. We had a couple stay a couple of years ago in the Windmill, and when guests leave the Windmill, we always like to say goodbye to them and to find out how their stay was, and to have the personal touch to catch up with them before they go. And we always say to them, let's find out from people what they did while they were in the area, in case people have done something that we didn't know of. And this particular couple had been with us for 3 nights. One day they went to the zoo, one day they went to the coast, one day he took her on a hot air balloon, and the following day he took her to a parachute jump. So it's like all of these things in our area that we didn't realise. Not that I particularly would want to jump out of a plane, but we didn't realise you could do that in all on our doorstep. So we're over the moon that we're so lucky to have so many things to do.
And Suffolk is a county that is close to London, easily accessible by air and indeed by train. And it really is a quintessential country, beautiful England county. So anyone flying from around the world should visit Suffolk. And no doubt, Natalie, you'll tell them to come and stay at the Windmill.
I could try and twist a few arms to convince them to come and stay, I think.
What can we expect from staying with you?
So from staying with us at the Windmill, as we've already talked about, we're very lucky that we're in a remote location surrounded by lots of open fields with lots of country walks. But the Windmill itself is self-catering accommodation, and we've actually found this to be hugely in our favour during the current climate of COVID, because we kind of discovered that most people, they want to escape the same four walls that we've all been stuck in for the last few months, but in the safety of their own property rather than where there are lots of other people. And the maximum that we can sleep in the Windmill is 4, and we have 2 separate bedrooms. But to be honest with you, the majority of our guests who come to stay, and they tend to stay as a couple or on their own. We've had quite a few people come just as one person, just to escape for some proper rest and relaxation away from everybody. When we've taken, just talking of COVID, we've taken it very seriously. And whereas before this year, I would take, when guests arrive, I would personally take them around the Windmill and give them a tour and explain how everything is used and how everything works. Now we're doing everything differently. So I meet people in the garden at a 2-metre distance in the pouring rain sometimes, like last week. and then I talk them around the Windmill over the phone. So I'm on their phone on loudspeaker, and they take me around each floor and they tell me which floor they're on, and I tell them what's within every floor. So just talking of which, going around the Windmill, when you go into the Windmill at ground level, you've got a kitchen diner, and that's got everything you need to cook in, because we've discovered a lot more people, as much as people do still want to go out, there are some people who prefer just to come in, stay in the Windmill the whole time and just cook or get takeaways and not venture out at all. So you've got your oven and hob and microwave. And we do now, we offer what we call packages for guests to enhance their stay. So we do a package called Let's Celebrate. So if people are coming to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary, they can have balloons and cake, birthday or anniversary cake. And another package that we offer that's been really popular since coronavirus this year is the Suffolk foodie package, which includes a Suffolk cream tea and a Suffolk grazing platter from a company called the Suffolk Platter. And that has all of like Suffolk cheeses and Suffolk hams. So it's quite nice for people if they just, on their first night, if you don't want to have to think about anything when you arrive, you've just got all of that laid out with a bottle of local wine from Lavenham Brook. And so people can just sit and enjoy the Windmill or sit up on the balcony if the weather's good, or out in the garden and just enjoy a few Suffolk nibbles and start their rest and relaxation.
How lovely. The actual interior is stunning too. I mean, your attention to detail, and I can see why you call it luxury, because a lot of people call theirs accommodation luxury, but yours really is.
That's really nice of you to say. Thank you. I really appreciate it when people say nice things about the Windmill. It's really important to us because when we started the design and the idea of the Windmill, we took all of the ideas that we loved from everywhere we stayed on all of our travels and got rid of all the things that we didn't like or that we felt were lacking. And we really thought about sort of not just the colour scheme and the way things looked, but also the way things felt. So the sofa, for example, is velvet and there's lots of textures, so that it's funny when I used to take people around the Windmill when they arrived, the amount of people that would touch things as you go around. So they'd walk into the downstairs bathroom and they'd be, oh, look at those tiles, and want to touch the tiles. Or you go into the first bedroom, which has got some amazing glitter wallpaper on it, and straight away the ladies are all straight to the wallpaper. Oh, where's that from? And touching the wallpaper and touching the velvet rose. Whereas the men would get to the top of the pod where the great big wooden dome in what we call the pod, which is the lounge on the 5th floor, and the men will notice things like, look at those brass tacks. And it's amazing the different things that people like to touch and people like to notice. It always makes me smile.
I think that's just brilliant. That's so brilliant. Now, Natalie, where do we go? How do we book with you?
So the best way to book with us is on our website, which is www.thewindmillsuffolk.com. And if you want to look at, apart from our website where we've got a great gallery of photos so you can see all inside the Windmill and the gardens, we're also on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And that's where you'll see the most up-to-date photos, and you'll see pictures of myself and Steve, who are now known as Mr. and Mrs. Windmill.
Yeah.
And so you'll see us and some of the escapades that we get up to throughout the year as well. So if you just want to keep up with us, it'd be lovely to have a follow from any of your listeners as well.
Yeah, well, I highly recommend to follow you because you are great storytellers, and it is very enjoyable watching your journey and indeed everyday life.
Thank you so much. That's really lovely to say. Thank you.
Well, listen, we have to say goodbye now, but thank you very much for talking to us. We hope that lots of people reach out and come and stay with you at the Windmill, and we wish you a very busy season right through to Christmas.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to welcoming you then, and hopefully you too in the future, fingers crossed.
Oh, we'd love to. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
To find out more, go to thewindmillsuffolk.com.
Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.